Good evening, you're watching London Live News at 6 with James Dickman. Coming up tonight, a first for Prince Charles as he delivers the government's plans for the next 12 months. But there's anger over a lack of legislation to help with the cost of living. The Wagatha Christie trial begins at the High Court as day one starts and sees Rebecca Vardy accuse Colleen Rooney for libel. We'll have an update on London's weather in the next 10 minutes as well. Plus, young campaigners who want to stop junk food advertising in public spaces. We'll hear about their call to legislators to abolish burger billboards. And another Marvel superhero movie, Madness. Londoner Benedict Cumberbatch was on the red carpet to celebrate the release of the new Doctor Strange film, Multiverse of Madness. First tonight, it's one of those displays of pomp and ceremony that only Brits can pull off. The annual state opening of Parliament, an outing for the Crown, a chance for the government to set out its agenda for the next 12 months. And today, a moment of history, the first speech delivered by Prince Charles. The palace confirmed late yesterday that the Queen would miss the event, the first time in close to 60 years that she has not delivered her government's plans. Buckingham Palace cited mobility issues.
My Lords and members of the House of Commons, Her Majesty's government's priority is to grow and strengthen the economy and help ease the cost of living for families.
With Camilla by his side, the Prince of Wales announced 38 new laws that ministers would like to pass, with a headline that the government's priority was to grow and strengthen the economy and help ease the cost of living for families.
Her Majesty's government will level up opportunity in all parts of the country and support more people into work. Her Majesty's ministers will continue to support the police to make the streets safer and fund the National Health Service to reduce the COVID backlogs.
Well, there were bills to give councils new planning powers and force landlords to let out empty shops, and a new state-run agency to regulate the railway. It will be called Great British Railways. A new media bill as well could bring about the privatisation of Channel 4, and there was a pledge to better regulate the internet. New laws will be introduced to give the police more powers to break up disruptive protests like those seen by Insulate Britain and Extinction Rebellion, as well as measures to improve the rights of victims. A conversion therapy bill will ban the practice for gay and bisexual people, but will not cover trans people, something campaigners will fight hard for. And new powers to boost renewable energy and a plan to improve the rights of tenants, all included. Well, shortly after the speech, politicians had their say on what was and what was not included.
This thin address, bereft of ideas or purpose, without a guiding principle or a roadmap for delivery, shows just how far this government is from that. Too out of touch to meet the challenges of the moment, too tired to grasp the opportunities of the future. Their time has passed. Mr. Speaker, the first great challenge our country faces is the cost of living crisis.
Downing Street has defended not using the Queen's speech to introduce measures that would help the cost of living crisis in the short term. The Prime Minister's official spokesman said the public understand that we've already acted to address some of the immediate challenges facing the public. The debate over the 38 bills will continue in Parliament for the next few days, and there'll be reaction from all quarters, both inside and outside the Commons. Well, as the 9-minute speech took place, campaigners from Liberty gathered outside along with a mobile billboard denouncing what they claimed was a power grab by the government against human rights. One of the 38 bills would deliver a long-standing Conservative Party pledge to replace some of the Human Rights Act. Ministers argue it will end abuse of the system so that courts can focus on genuine and credible claims. Campaigners disagree.
The whole point of human rights is that they're universal. They don't rely on whether you've been good or bad in the eyes of the state. They don't rely on whether you have citizenship, for example. But these proposals would strip away basic rights, rights to fairness, dignity and equality, from people who the state deems to have behaved badly or to not have the right status. So if you're a protester, if you're a migrant, if you're in prison or in police custody, you will have fewer rights than other people. And we won't be able as a country to claim that we have universal human rights protection anymore. This isn't about human rights laws being abused. This is about this government not wanting to be challenged in the courts and not wanting to be challenged by the people.
Well, ahead of the speech, the Home Secretary visited the Met Police's Specialist Training Centre in Gravesend. Priti Patel will lead the bill providing new powers to clamp down on demonstrators. A new criminal offence will be created for so-called disruptive protesters in the Public Order Bill. It has been heavily criticised as undemocratic by campaigners and opposition parties.
The right to protest is something that we all cherish dearly, and of course that'll continue. And I'm afraid that is one of the arguments that has been used even through the Police Crime Courts and Sentencing Bill and that passage through Parliament. That is simply not right. That is a lazy excuse, because we live in an open society and an open country where absolutely the right to protest is a fundamental freedom that we all cherish. We are speaking about the type of acts that actually endanger lives, put lives at risk, and actually put our police officers' lives at risk. And having been to some of the oil refinery sites myself, even just 2 weeks ago, I saw the incredible techniques that our officers had to use to bring people down, to decouple individuals who were locked onto fuel pipes, locked onto oil tankers.
There you go. Some other stories from London today. You can forget the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial over in the US, as the libel trial brought forward by Rebecca Vardy against Colleen Rooney began at the High Court today. Mrs Vardy, the wife of Leicester City striker Jamie Vardy, says Colleen wrongly concluded that she was sharing private Instagram stories to the tabloid press. The wife of England's all-time leading goalscorer Wayne Rooney was nicknamed Wagatha Christie after publicly posting that it could only have been someone on Rebecca Vardy's account that would know about certain fake posts she put there to try and uncover the culprit. Well, Rebecca Vardy strenuously denies doing so and says that any leak in information was not done with her approval. Both parties are set to make a loss as their legal bills far outweigh any damages they could receive. A man from North London has been jailed for 10 months for driving at speeds of up to 135 miles an hour to avoid being caught by police. He's been jailed at around 8:30 p.m. on the 29th of November last year. Minad Gaffour, who is 18 years old from Enfield, was seen by police travelling at excessive speed in Redbridge heading towards Cambridge. He was also disqualified for driving for 2 years and 4 months. He previously pleaded guilty to dangerous driving, failing to stop for police, driving without a licence and driving without insurance. The Horniman Museum in Forest Hill has been shortlisted for a £100,000 national prize. The South London attraction is in the running for the Art Fund Museum of the Year award. Organisers say each of the shortlisted venues run exhibitions which tackle the vital issues of today. The Horniman was founded in 1901 and it includes dozens of stuffed animals, rare musical instruments and an eclectic collection of tea trade artefacts. The winner will be announced in July. Let's just take a look at the weather for you now. Cloud cover will stick around this evening. Overnight lows of around 12 degrees. Warming up a bit tomorrow morning though, highs of 17 by around midday. We could see some rain in the afternoon, however. Looking ahead to Thursday, the sunshine is returning. Temperatures hovering just shy of that 20-degree mark. Friday also looking warm and bright as we head into a sunny weekend. Just one more headline before the break. West Ham club captain Mark Noble, who officially retires at the end of this season, will play his final ever game at the London Stadium, but for England in the summer. Not in the actual international side, however, but in the Soccer Aid match lineup taking place at West Ham's home ground in the Olympic Park on Sunday, the 12th of June. Noble never quite managed a call-up for the international side at senior level, despite calls for it by West Ham fans, particularly during the Hammers' 2015 to 2016 campaign, where he led the side to European qualification. Well, the midfielder has played over 500 games for West Ham in a 20-year career. Noble will play his last game for West Ham in front of home fans against Manchester City at the London Stadium this weekend. Right, in just a few short minutes. The Walk and Talk initiative set up by the firefighter who was alarmed at the state of the mental health crisis his male colleagues were facing, suffering in silence. We'll learn how he's been transforming their lives.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Welcome back. On to some of the other main headlines today affecting Londoners. Labour says it can prove that staff, including Sir Keir Starmer, continued to work after having a beer and a curry during a COVID lockdown last year. Police in Durham are investigating whether or not rules were broken. The party says it has evidence to show that the team were working until 1 a.m. The police investigation could take 8 weeks, and Sir Keir says he will offer his resignation as leader if he's given a fine. A fourth dose of a COVID vaccine is worth it, particularly for people aged over 70. That's according to scientists who've been looking into the effectiveness of an additional booster. However, they say short-term protection against infection is still likely to fall away quickly. The UK rolled out fourth doses to over 75s and the most vulnerable in April. More people may be offered another jab in the autumn. According to new research, schools that do not convert to become academies are more likely to achieve higher ratings from Ofsted. Well, the local government association said that 92% of local authority schools had been rated good or outstanding by Ofsted since the end of January. That was compared with 85% of academy schools graded since they changed status. It also found less than half of academies improved their rating from inadequate or requires improvement in the last 4 years. Now, this week is Mental Health Awareness Week, and part of it we've been speaking to Londoners who have been highlighting their issues. Well, today we hear from Dean Corney, a firefighter from South London. Dean has faced his own personal struggles on the job, and after hearing of the alarming statistics around male suicide rates, he decided to start a walking group in his local park where fellow firefighters could join and talk about their mental health. Well, Dean wasn't expecting it to be more than himself and a friend walking around Beckenham every week, but it has grown exponentially in the last 8 months to a number of other parks around the capital with dozens of members. Well, Dean, join me.
I always think I'm quite open and, reach out and talk. And then I actually thought, there's been a lot of times in my career when we might have been to traumatic incidents or, in life in general, where I should have spoke out and I haven't. So then we started thinking, well, why, do men not reach out? Why do they not talk, And we wanted to try and offer something, take away the possible barriers stopping men reaching out, and just offer something that was in a relaxed atmosphere, might encourage guys to actually, it is okay to reach out, other people are doing it. We thought, offer it out as a men's group. So you take the barriers, there's still that macho stigma in the public as well with men. We go out with mates, we don't really talk about personal stuff. We'll go out for a drink with a mate, you talk about everything but personal. If you try to talk about personal, you just don't feel comfortable. And in our job, there's still that stigma of, I can't show weakness. And another factor, men don't like to show weakness in front of women, and they won't open up, break down. And myself, I thought I was quite open. And then I realised actually I didn't really talk to my wife about a lot of the trauma I went through in the job, for one reason or another. So if we're not doing it, how many more aren't? And we need to do something and offer something to try and get these men talking. The amount of support we're getting and people saying they wish their son, their brother, their husband had this. If I went into work tomorrow and said, right, I'm ready to talk, I want to, where can I go? We've got counselling and trauma, which is a fantastic service, but we want it to be like an early intervention. I might have a bad week this week and think it'll pass, I'll be fine, but it'd be good to get off my chest this week so then I can go to the walk, talk about it. It's an early intervention which can hopefully stop you getting to the crisis point.
And of course, this year's theme is loneliness, and coming together on a walk and talk exercise like yours is exactly the thing people might need to counteract that loneliness. Because isn't that one of the most important things? If you have had problems, particularly in your line of work and the stresses of it all, talking to people and being around other people with similar experiences is kind of the best remedy.
Yeah, definitely. We've all got shared lived experiences, and the one thing you hear from a lot of people, not just in our job, in any of the services, out in the public, is when people are struggling, the one thought is that they're on their own. Why is it me? I'm the only one that feels like this. So exactly that. The idea was to try and get you together with like-minded people, having their own struggles, and you hear the stories. People are free to talk. No one's under any pressure to talk. Some do, some don't. We made it's very clear, it's very relaxed. You say as much or as little, but one thing that comes out of it is people at the end always say, I feel I'm not on my own anymore, and I've got a good supporting network around me, but not everyone has that. Some people, will finish the job, might go to a traumatic incident and go home, and then they're on their own. So you think you wanted to offer that as well, to say, you don't, once a week on our walk, turn up. It's a bit of a social now. You meet like-minded people that, are there for the right reasons, care about you, and want to hear what you've got to say.
And if you don't mind me asking about your personal struggles, which, as you mentioned, was one of the reasons why you wanted to start this, what were the kind of the things you were going through which you felt like before this kind of thing you didn't have the outlet to deal with? What were kind of the triggers for you?
When I talk to friends, one thing that always resounds with me is they might talk about something that's on the news and say, "Oh, you'll be all right with that, Dean, because you're used to that." And I always have to say, "Well, actually, we don't get a chip in us to make ourselves, immune to these sort of traumas. It affects us, and we do take it home." But yeah, I've done CPR on people before, and unfortunately, they've not made it. So you do that, and it's a strange job because early days now, obviously doing this, I'm open about. I feel I can talk. It's given me that voice around work, not just on the walk, at work now. I openly broach things with people now. But many years ago when I was first in job, I do CPR on someone. Unfortunately, they wouldn't make it. We'd then leave work. You'd naturally sort of, the macho side, feel, right, this is your job. I joined. I don't want to show weakness, so I won't talk about that. Then I go home to my wife, and then I'm sitting there thinking about it. But of course, I don't now want to put that on her. One, I don't want her to have obviously the image and the feelings. But again, it's that I don't want to show weakness. I don't want her to worry that I can't cope with the job. So what you do then, you just think, well, I just won't tell anyone.
Well, you can search for Walk and Talk 999 on Instagram and Twitter for more information. Now, young campaigners from across London are calling councils across the capital to take urgent action to restrict junk food marketing in publicly owned spaces, including TfL. The young campaigners from Bite Back 2030 have written to every council across the city and are urging local leaders to meet with them to discuss introducing new, healthier advertising policies. Well, Hebe spoke to two campaigners, Becky, who is 18, and Lily, 16, about their latest projects.
As children, we travel a lot to and from school. We use a lot of public transport. There's a lot of adverts everywhere, whether that's digital, those are on bus stops, bins, etc., billboards. We've noticed that we are literally bombarded. No matter where you go, there will always be a junk food advert. So Bite Back as a whole is just a youth-led movement where we aim to put child health first. At the moment, we're sort of calling for TfL to remove public advertising of junk foods, ultimately asking for a ban on high fat, high salt, high sugar foods in public, to make a healthier society, I suppose.
Becky, tell me a bit about the publication, Bombarded by Junk Food, that you guys have sent to every local council in London, and what the response was from them.
Okay, so our publication is our manifesto, something we've been working really, really hard on, because our current campaign is to end all junk food advertising in publicly owned spaces. So we really wanted to, I guess, make a piece of work that was very different from all the other manifestos other people are probably used to, and just kind of like show everyone like, this is us. This is the issue. This is what we stand for. Obviously, like wanting to rectify the food system and make it more fair for everyone to have access to healthy, nutritious meals. We really wanted to show the councils like this is who we are, and we really want to like have a conversation with them. Like we want them to meet us and talk to them about how they could, I guess, enforce policies to make a fairer food system within their local councils.
You guys, as a campaign group, talk a huge amount about how people in maybe more deprived areas often have a worse diet. Can you tell me a bit more about your work with trying to kind of balance it out a bit?
So what you do see, unfortunately, a lot in London is the fact that junk food advertising is very targeted towards certain areas. So what you do see is certain demographics, like you mentioned, people who live in more deprived areas or lower income backgrounds, they end up suffering worse from the consequences. Things like food deserts, where all they have is junk food. They're bombarded by that. They're being swarmed by it. Their streets are flooded with junk food and unhealthy options. So they have no choice really. Like there are options, but there aren't really options. Like the idea like, yeah, there aren't really options for them. And so something that we're aiming to work on is just to make the food system fair, especially for those people, so that they do have options and they have the option to choose to pick healthy options and are not just limited to junk food. Because obviously what you do see as well is that not only are there more junk food chain things like that in those deprived areas, that junk food is obviously a lot more cheaper than the other healthy options. So if certain things aren't as accessible to you and your hands are really tied in that situation, you only really have one option. So that's something we're trying to rectify.
Tell me about the response you got from local councils in London.
It's been mixed reviews. We've obviously had some really positive meetings. Like we spoke to Greenwich Council and Tower Hamlets, and they were very, very positive. You know, they were very on board with it. A lot of councils haven't replied, which is obviously a bit disappointing, because we want them to be we want to be involved. We want them to be involved and get engaged with them. And a couple obviously kind of didn't realize that there was an issue, or have maybe turned a blind eye to it. So yeah, I'd say the reviews are mixed, but that's not going to stop us. Like, we're going to keep going, and we're going to keep putting ourselves out there. But another thing is as well is that obviously the local elections have just happened, and that's happening, so they're going to obviously be a bit preoccupied. But I guess after that, we're going to use that as an opportunity to put forward our mission, and kind of try and get more the new councils as well involved, so we can just progress with that.
Are you guys calling for kind of interference, from a kind of school age and in schools, in education, teaching them about, what you should and what you shouldn't be eating to maintain a healthy diet? Is that what you guys are looking to eventually do?
Along those lines, yeah, we already have had a kind of hand within schools, and we've started something called School Food Champions, which is essentially we give schools a budget, and they have a group of students who focus on healthier foods. But obviously as well with Bite Back, we have to be cautious with body positivity, because we don't want to cross the lines too much in terms of eating disorders. So what we're aiming to do is not focus on healthy foods as lettuce, vegetables, things like that, but focusing on healthy foods as things which are not junk food, not high in fat, high in salt, etc.
There you go. For more information, you can go to Bite Back's website. Right, you're watching London Live News with James Dickman. A reminder of our top story is coming up after the break. Plus, the TV gardener David Damoni will be with us. He's pushing a new network of community gardens to help tackle loneliness. More on that in the next 15 minutes.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Welcome back to London Live News. Let's just have a reminder of our main story from this evening. It's one of those displays of pomp and ceremony that only the Brits can pull off. Today, the annual state opening of Parliament, an outing for the Crown and a chance for the government to set out its agenda for the next 12 months. And today, a moment of history, the first speech delivered by Prince Charles.
My Lords and members of the House of Commons, Her Majesty's government's priority is to grow and strengthen the economy and help ease the cost of living for families.
With Camilla by his side, the Prince of Wales announced 38 new laws that ministers would like to pass, with a headline that the government's priority was to grow and strengthen the economy and help ease the cost of living for families.
Her Majesty's government will level up opportunity in all parts of the country and support more people into work. Her Majesty's ministers will continue to support the police to make the streets safer and fund the National Health Service to reduce the COVID backlogs.
There were bills to give councils new planning powers and force landlords to let out empty shops, and a new state-run agency to regulate the railway. It will be called Great British Railways. A new media bill as well could bring about the privatisation of Channel 4, and there was a pledge to better regulate the internet. New laws will be introduced to give the police more powers to break up disruptive protests like those seen by Insulate Britain and Extinction Rebellion, as well as measures to improve the rights of victims. A conversion therapy bill will ban the practice for gay and bisexual people, but will not cover trans people, something campaigners will fight hard for. And new powers to boost renewable energy and a plan to improve the rights of tenants all included. Well, shortly after the speech, politicians had their say on what was and what was not included.
This thin address, bereft of ideas or purpose, without a guiding principle or a roadmap for delivery, shows just how far this government is from that. Too out of touch to meet the challenges of the moment, too tired to grasp the opportunities of the future. Their time has passed.
Now, continuing on with Mental Health Awareness Week, as the benefits of being outdoors are now being promoted, research backs up the time-old belief that spending time with nature and in a garden makes us feel good. Well, with that in mind, the TV gardener David Dominy is backing a new campaign to create a network of community gardens to tackle issues like loneliness, which is the theme of this year's week. I caught up with him a little bit earlier.
Well, there's been a strong connection between gardening and mental health over quite some time, and not just the mental abilities and well-being, but also the physical as well. Some research done by Miracle Grow was looking at the effects of gardening and against a variety of different issues, from stress, anxiety, and one of the big ones that came about was loneliness. How out of the sample of 2,000 odd people that they interviewed, that they found 48% felt that loneliness was one of the issues people were suffering with. And if you think about it, on the back of lockdown, where people were working from home, not engaging with friends or family, and many people still working from home. Of course, there's divorce rate, and then there's bereavement, and then there's people moving house. This element of loneliness, and people experience loneliness in different ways because it's very personal, can have a variety of different side effects, from depression and anxiety and stress. And part of their research and part of their campaign, which really looking at effective using gardening as a great opportunity to start conversations with neighbours and engage with them, because talking to people in bars and in clubs, you know, it's very different now. People feel slightly intimidated talking to strangers in case it's taken the wrong way. But in the right setting, in a garden setting, where, you know, you're commenting, do you get that robin that comes into the garden? Oh yes, he's marvellous. And people are planting baskets. Invariably, some of the elderly neighbours may get a little bit of help. So their whole focus on creating a campaign that supports neighbours was very important.
Yeah, expand a bit on that campaign then, David, because particularly here in London, having a garden is seen as a bit of a luxury for many of us, but it's about connecting with people in other outdoor spaces that may not be your own home or flat.
Absolutely, you don't have to have a garden. And I wrote a book during lockdown, which was My Houseplant Changed My Life, which was focusing on growing indoor plants and the mental health benefits of that. And of course, as you remember, it won the gold medal at Chelsea Flower Show last in September when we did it. So engaging with plants has a huge restorative effect for our mental health. Even the sight of green, you know, as a human species, we can see more different variant shades of green than almost any other colour, and it relaxes and calms us. And as you'll know, in the television world, and same with theatre and radio, the green room being an important place for guests to relax in before they come on to stage. So Miracle Grow have launched this campaign to try and use garden to break down the barriers and the act of gardening to engage with people as well. And in fact, on their website, lovethegarden.com, they're giving away a free a well-being book, Seeds, and also a crib sheet, which is incredibly important, on good conversation starter points with gardening for you to engage with the neighbours and overcome the loneliness. But the whole act of taking care of plants, having a moment to engage with nature in this ever technological world, this harmonisation between being online and being in nature is very important for our own mental and physical well-being.
Yeah. Well, you're a gardener and a horticulturalist. You must be one of the happiest people alive, according to this research then. Is that right, David? How does it help you?
Well, I've got 3 kids under 8, so I've got a slightly more... Well, I think getting outside really does make a difference. And, you know, in many cases when you're growing plants, nature is doing a lot of the work for you, apart from us cutting the lawn and the like. So when you sow seeds and when you put in plants and you're working away, you're looking forward to getting home, seeing how things have grown. And that type of attending and nurturing and succeeding gives all sorts of positive chemicals in the brain that are feeling well-being. You know, it's the simplest thing. Feeding birds outside the kitchen windowsill, sitting down for breakfast and seeing them come and eat their breakfast as well. It lifts you up. Gardening isn't about watering and weeding and cutting the lawn. You know, it's about water pistols with the kids. It's about a barbecue. It's getting home from work on a summer's evening and opening a glass of wine, sitting out in the garden, the scent of honeysuckle, the sound of the birds and the bees. You know, it uplifts the heart. It nourishes the soul.
Gardener David Dominy there. Right, still to come this evening. His music.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Welcome back to our final part this evening. Now, the man behind the music for dozens of films, including Stardust, The Young Victoria, and the David Attenborough series, The Perfect Planet, will be filling the Royal Albert Hall with his latest composition this month in connection with the astronaut Sir Tim Peake. Ilan Eshkiri's Space Station Earth will mix never-before-seen images and videos taken from the International Space Station with a new album of music. He told Anthony more about the project, but first, let's take a listen.
Just a taste of what you can expect. Ilan, lovely to see you. Thank you for coming in. Let's talk about the background for this then. Obviously, we all know the story of Sir Tim Peake, who we saw there, and his journey to the International Space Station. Was it that moment that you thought there's something to be done here with my music and a collaboration?
Well, it actually happened the other way round. Before Tim went up to the space station, he contacted me because he was a fan of my music, and he asked if he could use some of my music. And because when they go to the space station, they make these videos. He has a mission video, and so I said yes, of course, and he invited me to come and visit him at NASA Johnson Space Center in Houston, and I got the tour that you can only get if an astronaut takes you round, which was so inspiring. By the end of it, I thought, why are we making a 5-minute thing? Why don't we do something bigger? And it just grew and grew into what it is now.
I mean, that's a unique collaboration, isn't it? You know, if you put astronaut and composer together, you wouldn't imagine that could happen. It has happened. What audiences will now get, perhaps the closest they might have to almost being able to relive that experience that he had, with a score which is kind of brand new and incredibly dynamic. That was the aim, I guess.
Yes, because what I realised is that there's a lot of television, documentaries, and a lot of books written and information about travelling to the space station, living on the space station, a lot of science and a lot of facts. But all the astronauts share an experience, wherever they're from in the world. They all share this experience of leaving the planet, looking back on the planet, and that is has a tremendous effect on the mind. And I thought, wouldn't it be great to try and express that in some way through music, because it's an emotional journey. So what you get from this show that's different to other things is the emotional experience of the astronauts.
If for you, perhaps, I imagine there are very few kind of topics, themes, places like space that lend themselves so nicely to music. You know, we only have to look at different types of space films to know that the music and the scores that come with them are incredibly powerful often, aren't they? Is it the topic that is a bit of a dream for a composer?
I suppose. I think that, you know, for me certainly, I'm an 80s kid and I grew up with space shuttle launches and Star Wars had not long come out. So the space was always very exciting for me. And this is in terms of making music, is a dream project, because it's only music. There's no dialogue, and it's led by the music, and it's just telling an emotional story, and that's what music does. It tells it expresses feelings and emotions.
Yeah, if you take the music away from a film, it has very little meaning often, doesn't it? And it is the music which builds the tension or the drama. When you come to writing a score like this, how long does it take you? Is it hours and hours and hours, I imagine?
Well, the thing is that it was not created, because it wasn't created as a film. It was created as an album and a concert. So really, I created both things together. But the intention was always to write music. And then the European Space Agency gave me access to their database. And then as we were going through this process of putting together images that would match the music that I was making, a bit like a giant pop video, they gave me the opportunity to go out and film a rocket launch, to do a zero-gravity flight. They were incredibly generous and supportive to the project, and so I found myself directing a film alongside writing this music. But the intention was always for the visual part of this to work as a support to the musical side of it.
We're looking now, I think, at pictures of you there filming the rocket launch. You know, we've seen you also in the trailer on that zero gravity flight as well. When it comes to performances like this, do you think that new element of visuals will attract new audiences to neoclassical music, to the sort of music which you create?
Yes. Well, I think that shows are increasingly, you know, whether you see a pop band or an orchestra, they're increasingly spectacles, right? There's tons of things happening on the stage that help immerse people in the experience, and that is what this is. This is definitely pushing more towards a pop sensibility. It's all synthesizer music. There is strings and brass and a choir, but it's very contemporary in its approach. It's also filmic in places.
And how does it feel being centre stage at the Royal Albert Hall? You know, you'll be there on the stage as it happens.
I mean, if I wasn't so busy with everything, I think I'd be terrified. But you know, because it's a big, and when I say it's a big stage to walk out on, I don't just mean physically big. I mean, when you think about the history of it, then you know, I'm following in some pretty huge footsteps.
Yeah, it will be a spectacular night, and perhaps one that you will remember. Are there plans to take this further? At the moment, that date on the 15th of May for the Royal Albert Hall, is something that you'd like to tour with, perhaps, and take to different places?
Yes, we are touring. We're going around Europe over the summer and into the autumn, and then we'll be coming back round in the UK as well. But though we haven't announced those dates yet, but
okay.
that will happen soon. So if you can't make it to the Albert Hall, there will be other chances.
There'll be another chance. And I must just ask about the zero gravity flight. Was that fun or fear for you? Because I think it would be fear for me.
It's a mixture of both, you know, because you have to take a certain amount of drugs, that you know, anti-disorientation drugs, anti-sickness drugs, and that makes you feel a little bit odd, and then the experience is quite strange. And so, you know, it is this magical experience of suddenly being able to fly, but you also feel a little bit weird and disorientated.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of different feelings when you do it, but it's definitely a mind-expanding experience, and I'm grateful I got the chance to do it.
Space Station Earth at the Royal Albert Hall on the 15th of May. Now, staying out of this world, just before we go, critics have called it one for the die-hard Marvel fans as the latest Doctor Strange movie has been released in cinemas. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is the studio's 28th film, as it sees Londoner Benedict Cumberbatch star in the title role. He joined the rest of the cast on the red carpet ahead of the release. We'll hear from him in just a moment, but first let's take a look at the trailer.
Stephen Strange. Stephen Strange. The Illuminati will see you now. I'm sorry, Stephen. Your desecration of reality will not go unpunished.
I love the fact that I get to, you know, straddle the sorts of polarities of our culture, and I'm playing in popular spare like this, and as well as something more sort of artisan, I suppose, in the terms of how you know, people say, well, there's a green screen and what does it feel like? Is it very odd? Is it frustrating? It's not. It's great. You're like a kid, and you have to create everything yourself. It's like an amazing canvas of imagination. You have a lot of help. You have some hints, but I'm going to sit in that audience tonight and watch stuff that I couldn't possibly imagine, that's just going to make me feel like I'm in a movie I didn't even know I was in. So I'm very excited for that.
You're wondering what happens now.
We will see what kind of Doctor Strange you are.
I think they can expect fun and chaos and a journey that is going to surprise them. I think it's going to be a surprising film for fans, and I think it opens up lots of opportunity for more stories to come with this multiverse.
I'm quite good at keeping secrets. I mean, it was in the pandemic as well when we started to film this, you know, right in the middle of lockdown. So, I mean, who was there to tell, really? You know, I was like, didn't see anyone.
This is it, you know, it's like to have that platform, to give those opportunities. We have Shang-Chi, Miss Marvel, yeah.
Moon Knight, you know, America Chavez representing Latina and LGBTQ community, and it's exactly what Marvel do. They represent, they voice the voiceless, and when people get seen, you know, that they can be heroes too, that sends ripples of positivity around the world.
You opened the doorway to the multiverse. We don't know who or what will walk through it.
Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. That's in cinemas now. One last look at the weather. Cloud cover sticking around this evening. Overnight lows of around 12 degrees. Warming up a bit tomorrow morning. Highs of 17 degrees by midday, but we could see some rain in the afternoon. Looking ahead to Thursday, the sunshine is returning with highs nearly touching the 20-degree mark. Friday is also looking good. Top temperatures of 20 degrees, warm and bright over the weekend. That is all we got time for this evening. Thank you for watching. Do join us again tomorrow night at the very same time. There's plenty more content though on our social media channels. Follow us at London Live. But for now, good evening and take care.